Thanks for being here today. We just wanted to tell you a little bit of the story and how we connected with Prince of Peace. As you see, can you see that okay? Okay. We are from Arizona. That's where our office is. That's where our home is. Our home is the international headquarters of Garuna, a couple rooms there that we work out of. And we are thrilled to partner with you. So from the desert to the beautiful area of Northern California, it's beautiful here. You're linking with us way across on the other side of the world. Ask Dave, who had to travel there. Many of you have probably done that kind of a trip. It's a jet lag. It's many hours on the plane. But your influence is being felt way over on the other side of the world. It's 26 plus hours, counting layovers. It depends. It can be longer if you if you want it to be. So
San Francisco isn't as bad.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it's quite a ways. So we wanted to tell you this in kind of little stories. And the first is how we got started. So this is about Garuna's founding. And the picture, it might be a little hard to see, but in the 90s, we were actually called, Jeff was called as a missionary for the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, where we had lived in Atlanta. He had been a pastor for 8 years, and our children were small. Some of you, I don't know, some of you knew our daughter, this one, Megan. We have 3 kiddos, and she taught at Zion San Francisco. So I mistakenly referenced Zion this morning because I know that school and church well too. But that's kind of how she connected with many of even your teachers, and we got to meet them through our daughter, Megan. Anyway, they grew up there. We were serving in Bangkok, and that was how we became acquainted with this part of the world. And Jeff began to look and open up some of the work from Bangkok into these surrounding areas. When Cambodia was first open, Jeff got to go over and kind of search out ways to do ministry in that country, as well as Laos, Myanmar, and now we work also in Vietnam. So that's the region. It's only 2% Christian there. Huge need and a huge population, as you see. So it was a great place to work because, there aren't many Christians, but what an opportunity. Some have asked, what would we find there? If it's not Christianity, it's typically Buddhism, animism, and you see in that religion, which you may be very familiar with, was new to us, but they were very accepting of other religions and kind of meshing of religions. So gradually, they began to want to learn more about Jesus. They didn't just convert in a day, typically. That can happen, but it usually took a lot more time. And over time, they began to see the differences, and they realized that reincarnation doesn't give them hope, which is a Buddhist belief. It was very works righteous, and that was exhausting. And so when they learned that God forgives you, it seemed too simple. We all feel that way too sometimes, but it was a great place to begin to introduce the gospel. This part of the world, Jeff is very strategic, and he said, I want to go somewhere where it makes sense to be. The strategy that might work well, and what this map shows is the population of the world, and it's color-coded. It might be a little hard to see, but each color represents 1 billion people. Our population in the world is probably, I think, now more than 7 billion, but this was 7 billion. So you see green, green, green. That's 1 billion. North America, South America, Australia. Another billion would be Africa. This color is a new color in Europe and so on is another billion. The purple is another billion. And then you see inside that circle these 3 colors plus, and you have more population inside that circle than out, if that makes sense. And they're mostly non-Christian, 2%. So it makes sense if you're going to work hard, our life is short, if you're going to put effort somewhere, let's go somewhere where the need is the greatest, and there are not many Christians, and that's why we are where we are. Certainly we need it here too. But after our 8 years in Bangkok as LCMS missionaries, we decided it was probably time to return home to the States for our kids' sake. They were entering junior high. They were doing great. We loved it there. But it was also time to say, maybe we need to let the nationals, the folks in Thailand and around there do the work without us, to get out of their way a bit. And that helped them grow. But as we returned, we decided to go to Phoenix, Arizona, where our parents either lived full-time or half-year. And we said, we've been away from Grandma and Grandpa. It's probably good that we go back. We don't know what we're going to do. We don't have a job right now, but we're getting back there. Jeff went and found a school, Christ Lutheran Phoenix. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it is a school there. We decided that would be a good place for our children. I taught there. I wasn't looking to work, but Jeff found me a job. How about that? and I hadn't taught for many years, but it was great to go back and start to remember how to teach again. And eventually I became assistant principal and then principal for 10 years there, until just 3 years ago, when Garuna had grown enough and we started to add schools, and our school population was growing, and their board said, maybe we need another staff person. Would Cheryl be interested? And I was. It was a good time. I had great time. There was no reason to leave Christ Phoenix. It's a great place. 2 of our children still work there, and that might have been another good reason for me to get out of the way too. But so that was our story a little bit, and we came back in 2000 to Phoenix, and I think the next slide will tell you about Garuna's start, which Jeff will tell you more about.
Now, feel free. We want this to be really informal, and if you have any questions, please just get our attention and ask, shout out. We're not exactly sure what you're interested in, so we want it to be a time that's valuable for you. So please feel free to ask any question. Any so far of Cheryl, that kind of introduction about why we are interested in Southeast Asia? Because we live there and we saw the potential there, the Spirit working and moving in that part of the world, so we wanted to stay involved in that region. Well, when we came back then in 2000, since we wanted to stay involved, and it was a young church, first generation believers, which is a very challenging anywhere, but especially in a minority when you're only 1 or 2% of the population, it's really, really difficult. So we formed a nonprofit, a 501c3, registered in Arizona, and we called it Garuna. Now, you see the definition. Garuna is a funny English word, but it really means grace or mercy or compassion. So you can think of it as the Grace Foundation. So 2001, we formed a board of directors, and then we began working on projects in Southeast Asia with the folks that we had a relationship already, the young Lutheran churches in the region. So, and then we are an RSO of Synod, which means a recognized service organization. That means the Missouri Synod leadership came and talked with us, examined what we were doing, and they said, we endorse what you're doing in Southeast Asia, because they haven't had any missionaries there for a long time. So we're kind of fulfilling a role for them, and so they've given us that kind of stamp of approval. And so we work with them, we communicate with them, and we're kind of serving in a way on their behalf in Southeast Asia. We are independent. We have our own board, like Pastor mentioned, but we work closely with our Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Yeah, you can just, right-click. Yeah. Our theme verse, a little bit hard to read, but you know it from Matthew 9. Jesus saw the crowds. He had compassion on the people. They were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Therefore, ask the Lord of the harvest for more workers. And it's true in the United States, we're short church workers. We're short teachers, we're short deaconesses, we're short pastors in our Lutheran church. But if that's the case here in the United States, and it is, imagine how challenging that is overseas, where there aren't any Concordias, there are no universities, Lutheran universities or seminaries. So there's a dramatic shortage of leaders and workers in the church there. So that's really our heart and soul of Garuna. We want to help train the local leaders. We want to help raise up the indigenous leaders who will lead their own church, and that's really our bias in everything we do, including the schools. So that's our theme verse. And we have 3 emphases. It's a little hard to see. I didn't put that very well on the screen. Maybe I'll move it a little closer there. All right. 3 emphases or 3 strategies as how in terms of how we can make an impact in a region. We were missionaries for a long time, and we would see some folks come in and do an activity for a short period of time and didn't relate it to anything else, and it would kind of disappear. So we said, we don't really want to do that. Life is so short. Is this really helping the local folks? So we wanted to come up with a system or a strategic approach, and maybe multifaceted, so that we felt like it may pass the test of time. So first of all, we thought, what's the most important thing we can provide for the young church? Training. Yeah, leadership training. And that's what they were asking for. We don't have a seminary. We don't have a Lutheran university. Would you help train us? And so that's when LISA started, or the Luther Institute of Southeast Asia. And so that's a major priority for us. We believe strongly in the training of the local leadership. And Pastor Tom, on our trip in January, led a seminar for our Cambodian LISA students on archaeology and the Bible. And they were so thrilled because they said to us many times, in our history in Cambodia, we've never had a seminar about how archaeology relates to our faith. And they were so excited to see the pictures like we saw in the sermon today. And they were thrilled. They said, we've never had this before. This is wonderful to connect ancient history with God's Word and with and its relevance in our daily life. So thanks, Pastor, for doing it. We hope you'll do some more in the future. So this is a primary emphasis of ours, okay? And it started in 2006. I look younger for some reason in that picture. I don't know if you can pick me out. You can't even recognize me.
And you have a collar.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle. Yeah, time has a way of changing things. But 2006, this is in Bangkok, and that's where it was founded. And so there's an office there, and there are branches in several Southeast Asian countries. And our model is teaching the teachers. We don't go over to be a pastor in a local church. We don't really know the language well enough. We don't know the culture well enough. But they're asking us for training, and so we can do that. So we have week-long seminars typically. And now, after 13 years, we bring all of the leaders from each of the countries together, normally to Bangkok. And then we teach a class that they're one of our curriculum. We have about 20 courses. We teach them the class in English because they're very well educated. Their English is excellent. And then they have the time to ask the questions they want. And then they take the course, translate it into their own language, and come up with the materials. And they take it back to their country and their people, and they teach in the local languages. So we really focus on training the leaders for each of the countries. And there are about 90 students now from 7 different ethnic groups, and you see the countries listed. It's really fun to get them together. They pray for each other, they fellowship with each other, and they feel part of one church. They feel part, and they feel that relationship with each other in their common faith. And then a second major ministry emphasis would be helping these leaders then who are pastoring congregations and preaching stations to form their own Lutheran church body. We can't force that upon them. It has to be their idea. It's something they want. And so after some LISA classes, they said, for example, in Cambodia, they said, why can't we have our own Lutheran church? What did I say? No, you can't have your own Lutheran church. Yeah, if you want to, sure. And so the class was during the day. And so their leadership said, okay, everyone that's interested in helping form the Cambodian Lutheran Church, come back in the evening. And I thought to myself, we're having dinner, and I thought, well, maybe if 5 people come, that would be great. There are probably 50 people there. And I thought maybe if 5 would come and they had that interest. And I wandered downstairs at 7 at the meeting, and everybody was there. All 50 were there. I thought, my goodness, this is amazing. And they talked about, okay, who's going to be our committee, our board? They do that there too. Who's going to be our representatives to form the church so that we can go to the government and ask permission and all of that. And so they, in time, they have their own board and their own leadership. And so we just walk alongside them, advising as they ask. And that happened well, you see a couple pictures. In the Lutheran Church in Thailand, these are their leaders, their board of directors. They have probably 7 or 8 ordained pastors, maybe 12 congregations, about 600 members. And then the Lutheran Church in Cambodia is a little bit larger. They're still in the process of forming. We don't want to rush it. We don't want to push too hard. It just takes a little bit of time, of course. The first generation, as you know. I don't know, Tom, did you take the course in the seminary on how to start a new church in a new country? Yeah. Good. Yeah. I missed that class. So we're kind of learning together as we go. And so they're in formation. And you notice how young they are because you recall what happened in the late 70s with the Khmer Rouge, the killing fields, Pol Pot. A whole generation, the older folks were all killed. And all of the educated were killed. And everyone that wore glasses was killed because they wanted the communist leadership which was their own Cambodian people doing it to themselves. They wanted an agricultural society. So they moved everyone out of the cities into the farms. And so they're still recovering from that. So a lot of young people there. But the nice thing about that, tremendous energy, tremendous enthusiasm. And they're taking leadership and they're taking ownership of building their own churches. And then the third emphasis of our three would be, okay, if we have training, we have a National Lutheran Church body into which people can join and participate. All right, let's reach out to kids. You know, our heritage as Lutherans, we have a tremendous system of schools like you have here. And it's a wonderful heritage that we have. It's a great blessing. And your school is wonderful and really strong and impacting the community with the gospel of Christ. And so we have such a heritage. We said, why don't we do that in Cambodia and in Southeast Asia? So we began starting some schools in about 6 years ago. And I'll turn it over now to Cheryl because this is really her area. But we thought this would be the third piece of our strategy to make an impact in a country. So it would be multifaceted. And so it's been fun to see. But maybe I'll take a breath now. And before Cheryl comes up, at this point, any questions? Yes.
I guess I have a lagging question.
That's a good question. We work in 5 of the countries in Southeast Asia, and each government is a little bit different, so you have to navigate that. But in Cambodia, they would call it a democratic parliamentary democracy. They have a king, and they also then pattern it really after England, United Kingdom. So they also have a parliament. So they're democratically elected. I put quotes because they throw the opposition party leaders in prison before the election. And the prime minister has been prime minister for 35 years. So a lot of the younger people there's some unrest because it feels like more like, I wouldn't use the word dictatorship, but I guess I just did. So a lot of places in Asia, it's a struggle when you move toward democracy. It's so unfamiliar because it's very much in their society to live in a commune. In a communal living is very common. So usually there's a benevolent dictator or some sort of socialistic kind of approach in that part of the world. But they're trying to have a democracy and it's taken a lot of time. It will probably take a lot more time, but we're finding that the government does not put restrictions on us. We have an NGO, in a non-government organization in Cambodia, legally registered with our own attorney and all of that. So, and we also have a land holding company, and so we're able to own the land and we're able to operate our schools, and we have licenses to share the gospel at our schools, and so we have that license on our walls and prevalent. So we ask for permission, and the local authorities have granted that so far. And we aren't aware of any pending changes. I think they like what we're doing because they don't have enough schools for all of their kids. And we're not charging tuition at our schools because we don't want the nearby public schools to feel we're competing with them. So we're basically tutoring schools where they, and I'm taking all of your thunder, aren't I? The schools there only meet half a day because they don't have the tax base to have full day school. So say the younger kids go to school in the morning, then they're free in the afternoon. What are they going to do? It's dangerous there. So our school then operates in the afternoon for 3.5 hours, and they come to us for math, Khmer language, Bible, and English. So they're with us for 3.5 hours and getting that kind of instruction. And then the older kids switch. And so the government, because we're not trying to make money off of the people and only providing a service that they want, they've been very willing to have us in the communities. So that's a very long answer to your question, but Thailand is a little bit different. Of course, Vietnam is still fairly communistic, and Myanmar would be more a military kind of democracy. Laos would still be fairly communistic. So each country is a little bit different in their stages. Yes.
I'm sorry,
And then some things don't work. And having lived over there a long time, in Thailand. We learned the language, and so you get an idea of what will work. And what we see failing is when American groups go in and try to tell everybody what to do. And our Americans, us Caucasians, we try to do that a lot. We think we know better than everybody else, but we don't. And so when we go over there, we try to take the posture, what do you need? You guys are doing a great job. We don't want to disturb what you're doing. How can we help? And so their requests are good requests. Training, projects, schools. That's what we do. That's what we do. So we're trying to stay out of their way because they're doing tremendous things. And we just try to supplement and provide these kind of projects. Really the key is letting the local people, finding the right local people and letting them run with it.
But I want to tell you a little bit about the school start. Some people say, what is it like where your schools are? Well, this is typical of where most of our schools are. These are the kinds of homes your Garuna kids live in. These are the kind of jobs their parents have. Yeah. Often they're farmers or they sell things and that kind of thing. Right. And when we'd go over there with groups in the past, we'd see that and we said, the kids many times weren't even going to public school. And we said, let's start a sponsorship program so we can at least help them buy, because they couldn't afford the uniforms, they couldn't afford the backpacks, small things, but that was a prohibitive thing. So we began to think about this sponsorship idea, which we're really pushing today, as I mentioned. It's $30 a month or $360 a year. And we're going to talk more about that, and you're going to hear about it after we're gone. But we have done this for a while at all of our Garuna schools. You see the years they were started. These are more rural, the first 5. And your school up here is near Angkor Wat. It's in a little more urban area, but still rural. You saw pictures today of the drones over, you see, but it's developing and you're nearer a bigger city. It's easier for you to go to that school and maybe take a mission team or high schoolers, and we don't have to be there to guide it. You could do it. Erin is great. She's a missionary and your teachers are super. But we would have our staff there to help, and we also bought land that's more in the capital city for the next school. That's another story. But anyway, wanted to show you that a Garuna school typically looks like this. It's fancier actually than the public schools. Your saw pictures inside. We're cleaning up and we're doing a few new things as we move ahead. This is how a kiddo gets to school. They might come on a bike with 4 or 5 kids. Their parents, a little jaunt there. That was our first school. I just wanted you to get a picture of how our first schools looked in the year and the number of current enrolled students at this school now. We started with 1. We built a second school as it grew. I'm just going to go through this quickly, though.
Like typical Lutherans, we didn't plan big enough, right? We didn't buy enough land, or we didn't build a big enough building. We just started with a small classroom, and then it filled up fairly quickly. So then we had to build a second classroom, and we even thought about that at your school. Maybe we should build it in stages because we weren't sure what the enrollment would be. But then you had such a good fund drive and you had the funds. We said, okay, it's easier to do it all at once, and let's trust that God will fill it up. And so we're thinking 100 or so, and it's already 283, approaching 300. So fortunately, you guys responded so well, we could do it all at once. And now we're actually saying, okay, what if it gets full? What are we going to do? Yeah.
First thing she said to you or whatever.
Yeah, she. It's nice when we have the dedication of our schools. They send the local government official, a Buddhist official, and they'll stand publicly and tell the families there, it's okay to send your kids to this school even though it's Christian. Don't worry, they're not going to steal your kids. They're not going to hurt your kids. Come to the school. And Dave's right. She said, you're going to run out of room at school. So that's what she said. So we're actually looking for other land around there and maybe make Siem Reap a hub for our work in Cambodia.
This was our second school. We're going there next week. We go next Friday to Asia again, and we're going to visit there. They have 216 students, so that school has grown, and we just built a new building you can't see there in the last year to accommodate growth. This was our third school. Erin's been there, and your teacher crew went to this school, and then we just finished that additional 2-classroom building in March of last year. That's a large school as well. Another school here, the 4th. And the 5th was actually already a house that is filled to capacity now. It's really fun to see that growing too. So now it's about how do we connect with Prince of Peace. And I think we have these 4 teachers who went in 2017. Erin was the leader of the pack that year. And I think, before I tell the story, let's have Erin tell her experience. Just tell us a little bit about how you became involved and how you felt when you were there on that first trip.
I just got involved actually by stopping by a booth at a teachers conference that I saw, and just being really interested. I've always had a heart for missions and ministry, so just got to know Jeff and Cheryl that way, and then was just so excited that I had the opportunity that Prince of Peace supported and allowed us to go over and helped fund our way on that first trip. Just the minute I got there, and just to meet the people there, the leaders that Jeff and Cheryl, and I know God led them to those leaders that are working they're in Cambodia. Just incredible people, and you just know that God is pulling the whole team together because it's just such a neat group of people. Just fell in love with the people there, fell in love with the kids there, and just the way they're doing the schools. As a teacher myself, totally connected with that, totally connected with the children, and they just love how they're reaching out and using the schools as their ministry tool there too. So just such a neat thing.
And then the last trip you were just there. How did it feel to be at your school?
Oh my God. Just watching it. Yeah, this is from the first trip we went, doing some of the outreach there.
These are some of the things your teachers do when they're on a trip.
Yeah, teaching the flannel board was completely new to them. This first trip, we took the flannel boards over for the first time and gave them the Bible curriculum. It had just been written, and then translated into the Khmer language. And so we took that over. We demonstrated how to teach a Bible lesson, how to, besides just direct instruction with the students, like what we're doing today, how to do it in a more interactive way that kids like and will engage with. So we modeled acting stories out for them. We modeled using the flannel board and taught them different techniques and things with that when we were over there that trip.
I don't see the plug-in for that flannel board.
They are enamored with that flannel board. The kids, when we went over this last time and I got to teach a story and use the flannel board with the kids, and so at our school in Siem Reap, that was the first time they had seen that, and they were just, all the ages, up through the junior high ages, they were just glued to it as we were teaching and using that, so that was a really neat thing for them to have.
The baptisms were there.
Yes, that day there were 16, 17 baptisms that day that we were there.
Well, she's in there somewhere. What we
Somewhere.
did this time is we gathered the teachers together for the first time. They'd never met each other. And so your teachers, other teachers from other Lutheran churches and schools helped kind of play games and teach them, model things that they might try in their school. So.
And we'll be doing that again this summer. Erin, you'll be with us on that too, and some of your teachers.
Yeah, and you talked about trial and error too. That's something they had not done with the teachers yet before this trip, and that was the first time the teachers got pulled together to meet each other from the different schools and then to do some learning together. And that's something they have loved so much that they've continued. You've already had a few others since then, and then we get to do that again this summer. So.
They're working on their presentations. Yeah, there you go. Let's see.
So this was, my perspective was that you guys came back, and I remember you and Jeff talking at Anchor Wat,
yeah.
And Erin is so, she thinks big, and said, why can't we have our own school? And Jeff's like, well, you could, I guess. We hadn't even thought about something that big, and that's kind of how it started. And Tom, they returned to Fremont, and after the jet lag subsided, they shared their ideas with your leadership, and they said, let's do it. And you began to build. That was the plan. And in 6 months, I hope you saw pictures. It was amazing to watch every day. They'd send new pictures on Facebook Messenger. And that was your school coming together. This has become our standard look now. A new school building or new build will look like this. 3-2 bathrooms, kind of a similar look. 283 students.
I think to arrive that day after having been there before, and we visited the area and just praying and thinking, God, could this be an area that you're leading in? And then talking possibly, Siem Reap would be a great location for our church to partner in, and just the huge, there's so many people there. There's just the mission field is wide open there. And then to go back and just in such a short time later to see how how you all gave and how this all happened, and then how God just pulled it all together so quickly to be there was just such a amazing experience, just to see how God had worked in things, and then to see the kids come. You pray that the kids are going to come. We build this school and that they'll be there. And then to see that morning, to stand there as the kids came in and just to watch waves and waves of children, and the morning of the dedication to watch the families come in. The people are there. The ministry field is wide open, and we're able to do that. And then to meet the teachers too, to see who God provided there. We prayed for a long time as they were working and hiring teachers, and that it's hard to find Christian teachers in that area, and to see that God provided several Christian teachers at our school, and then just to watch and start to get to know them this very first time a little bit, and just to see what God has provided. It's just truly a blessing for us, and then for these students that are there at the school. About a year and a half ago, I had the privilege of coming to Cambodia with Jeff and Cheryl. I got to meet the children and see the schools in action over here. It was really exciting to know that Prince of Peace wanted to partner with Garuna Foundation, and we wanted to get involved and see if we could help build a school to reach more children with the gospel message.
So as a member of Prince of Peace, it was pretty exciting when Jeff and Cheryl came by and pitched the idea of our congregation sponsoring an entire new school in Siem Reap. And it was kind of fun to see how the congregation rallied around that.
Our teachers at our school have been involved with Garuna in training some of their teachers in order to help them learn how to share the gospel and teach the scripture. And we hope that it's not just a project that our teachers will be involved in, but that others from across our congregation will come and be involved in the ministry there at Siem Reap in various ways. It's been an awesome opportunity to be a partner with Garuna, and it's done a lot to invigorate our congregation in order to keep our eyes away from ourselves and in the world that really needs Jesus.
I am blown away on a number of levels. One is the speed and the scale of everything that has been done here. 9 months later, with a dedication of a brand new school, and over 200 kids, all the parents are here, beautiful facility.
Our partnership with Garuna Foundation is just amazing, and to get to know these teachers and know that we're going to be building a relationship with them, we're going to be able to see these kids grow and develop both in their knowledge of math and English and Khmer, but also to grow in their knowledge and hopefully their love of the Lord Jesus.
This has really been an amazing experience. Nothing like handing a backpack to a little child and seeing their face light up, knowing that they have an opportunity to learn and to grow the things that they're going to learn, especially learning about Jesus in a way they never would have ever possibly heard.
It is really amazing to see how God blesses something like this beyond our expectations.
It's just such a blessing and joy and privilege to be part of what's going on here.
Currently, we are looking for the location of our 7th school. we have decided to locate it in Phnom Penh, where we call it the center to connect other 6 schools. May God bless us to choose the best location for us for the 7th school. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. And I know we wanted to talk about Garuna Kids. That's kind of what's up next. As we talk about what would be a good way to continue this support, it might be built into your budget, but maybe we can personalize it more by introducing an opportunity for individual families at your school and your church who want to have a Garuna kid. This is my kid. You have his picture on your refrigerator. And over on the corner there and out in the lobby are faces of 60 kids from your school. Now I've got more than that if we need them. 220 some extra. But they, to be sponsored by you, it gives you their bio, their background, and then you can know you're helping for the operations of that school going forward. And that's what we really wanted to challenge, to see if we could get 50 to 60 from this community in the next few weeks, maybe. And I just suggested today, maybe by Easter. It's always good for us to have goals, I think, and to say, can we get to 60 by Easter? And we'll keep in touch with you. The way to do it is to pick your child, fill out, there's a little card that we prepared that says, reserve this child for me. And then there's a larger sheet that tells you how you can do it even online if you want, or you can send a check to Garuna. We want to take it off of the church office, off of their plate, and we'll do it in our Arizona office, but they will certainly, if you have the forms, you want to give it to your secretary here, they'll get it to us. And then you'll get a brochure that tells you about your kiddo. So there are also teacher sponsorships, but and I can visit more with you about that too.
So we can operate a school with 6 teachers and 250 kids for about $1,500 a month, something like that. So the dollar goes so far in that part of the world. Yeah. So thanks for pointing that out.
So that's what I showed you, the supplies and all that is provided free for them. Bible story books.
Well, there is, you talk about child trafficking is an issue in the region, and also just danger, that kind of abuse, danger from drugs and that kind of abuse from the older kids or youth. So just unsupervised kids babysitting the littler kids, and maybe sometimes then they would have to go out into the fields and work a little bit too, which would also be a bit dangerous. So those were the kind of dangers I was alluding to. So it gives them a safe place to go during an unsupervised time where other people might take advantage, or maybe, that's probably enough.
I think too, we've worked with girls who have been trafficked when we were in Bangkok, and once that's happened, it's very hard to change or fix or correct or heal. So we're trying to use our schools also to prevent that. Not just in getting them off the streets or in a safe place, but also to help them be wiser and more alert to that kind of danger. And then to have Jesus as someone to trust and find that hope for their lives.
Good question though, yeah. Good. I really think that's really our presentation, and there are the materials there. Any other kind of closing questions? Yes.
So the sponsorship, is it modeled a little bit like Compassion International?
Yeah, I steal a lot of good ideas from other groups. Yeah. World Vision.
We're not doing the clothing and all, it's education, and it's Lutheran. And some of them are more community, that clean water and so on emphasis. Ours is really more on the education and the biblical aspect. The sponsorship will help a child get that.
But they do get a school uniform, so
yes,
they do. They get the uniform supplies.
Yes, you may. You don't have to. We don't write back yet, just because of the time that takes. They don't write English. That may come sometime, maybe from your school in particular. Pictures or something would be easier. But if you write a letter to your kiddo or send a card, we will get it translated and given to them.
So it's the precise child that you're sponsoring at the school. And so if they leave the school for some reason, move or something, or they graduate, then we would reassign, because it's really limited to the kids that go to our our schools. So there's that transition. So it's really their idea, compassion and world vision, but just tweaked a little bit. Primarily, I'm saying going to one of our schools. That's mainly the main difference.